Hello everybody. Today we are going to be looking at finding the surface area and volume of spheres. Here at the top of our notes sheet we've got a couple of vocab terms that we need to get out of the way. Most of this is stuff you already know. A sphere is the set of points in space that are equidistant from a point called the center of the sphere. A radius of a sphere is a segment from the center to any point on the sphere, and that's very similar to the radius of a circle. And 1/2 of a sphere is called a hemisphere. We have our formulas given here for the surface area, 4 pi r squared, and for the volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed, which tells us in either case we need to know the length of the radius of the sphere in order to determine the surface area and the volume. So we've got two examples that we're going to be looking at today. General directions that we'll be following. Find the surface area and volume of each sphere, give an exact answer and a decimal answer rounded to the nearest hundredth. Alright, so we start in this case. The first thing you want to look at in any of these problems is whether or not you're given the radius. If you're given the radius, then it's just a simple matter of substituting that value into the formula in place of r and working it out from there. If you're given the length of the diameter, then you'll need to divide that by 2 first to determine the length of the radius, and then continue in the same manner. All right, so for this first one, we're given a radius of 4 inches. Since we're given the radius, we start right into our surface area formula first. It really doesn't matter which one you do first, surface area or volume. We're going to substitute the 4 in place of r. So in this case, it's going to be 4 times pi times 4 squared. Keep in mind it is only the 4 that is being squared, not the coefficient for pi. So in this case, we could go ahead, if we were following our order of operations, go ahead and square that 4, which is going to make it 4 pi times 16. Multiply those values together. In this case, I want an exact answer, which just simply means I don't want to put in any type of decimal form for pi. I don't want to use 3.14. I don't even want to, at this point, use the pi button on the calculator. The exact answer is determined by taking these two whole number values, and they don't always have to be whole numbers, but I want to take these two exact values, 4 and 16, and we're going to multiply those together. Remember, since multiplication is commutative, that's what's going to allow us to go ahead and multiply those. That 64 that we get from 4 times 16 is still being multiplied by pi. So in this case, 64 pi units squared, or inches squared, would be the surface area, the exact surface area for this particular sphere. Now, if we are going to give the decimal answer, which is also requested in the problem, that's where we'd go to the calculator. In this case, we are going to type in 64 pi. And you'll want to use the pi button for the problems that we're going to be using in class. 3.14 would give you a reasonable approximation to the answers that I'll be getting, but if you want the exact answer that I have, we'll be using that pi button. And that's where we're going to round it at, 201.06. So 201 and 6/100ths, don't forget your decimal point, inches squared. And that would be our decimal answer. So we have the exact answer of 64 pi inches squared, and then this rounded decimal answer. All right, so now let's look at the volume. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. Substitute the same value of r that we've had before, the 4. 4/3 pi times 4 cubed. Here again, it is only the 4 that's being cubed, not the 4/3 or the pi. So 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64 for that 4 cubed. As we did before, where we multiplied the 4 and the 16 together, here with the volume, we'll multiply 4/3 times 64. That's not going to give you it's going to give you a repeating decimal. If you were to multiply it with a calculator, keep in mind that that repeating decimal can be thought of as an improper fraction, and that's the form that I'm going to go ahead and keep this in. Basically, what I'm doing is taking this 4/3 and multiplying by 64 over 1, which is then going to make my exact answer 4 times 64, which is 256, over 3 times 1, which is 3 pi Here our label is inches, and because it's a volume, it's inches cubed. So that becomes the exact answer for the volume. Now when it comes to the decimal answer, there again, we're going to use our handy-dandy calculator, 256 over 3 times, and there again, I'm going to use the pi button. Helps if you type it in right, huh? 268.08 inches cubed. So dependent upon whether the problem is requesting a decimal answer or an exact answer will determine which of these two answers you'd be expected to give in the problem itself. All right, so that's an example of when given the radius. Now, in example 2, I'm going to slide this paper up just a bit here. In example 2, we have a diameter given, specifically a diameter of 9 feet. So in this case, I want to start by determining the radius. If the diameter is 9 feet, then that means the radius is going to be 9 divided by 2, or 4.5 feet. We're not changing the label at all. It's just simply determining what half of that distance would be. So here this distance becomes 4.5 feet. Then we go right into the surface area and volume formulas as we did before. So surface area, 4 pi r squared, becomes, substituting now the radius, in this case 4.5, and I'm going to enlist the help of my calculator here. I want to square that 4.5. Now, when I do that, even though it's going to give me a decimal answer, don't round this decimal answer. You want to keep it exact. So in this case, 20.25 is 4.5 times itself. We're going to treat this the same way we did above. Multiply the 4 times that 20.25. And we get a nice round number of 81 pi. In this case, feet squared. And that becomes our exact answer in this case. It's exact because we've in no way approximated it. We've in no way rounded the answer. All right, so there's the exact answer. Now we're going to multiply that 81 times pi, using that pi button on the calculator, and we find a surface area of 254.47 feet squared for the surface area of the sphere. Okay, continuing on, we find the volume, 4/3 pi r cubed. Substitute once again, 4/3 pi, the r is 4.5 cubed. So here again, when I multiply that 4.5 times itself 3 times, when I cube that value, I'm not going to round the decimal. I know we tend to think that we just want to write 1 or 2 decimal positions, but in this case we don't want a rounded answer, so we don't want to round any of that off. All right, now we're going to multiply by 4/3. Here again, I'm going to keep it an improper fraction, which if you can't do that by hand, you can do it with your calculator. 243 over 2. And we haven't done anything with the pi yet, so we still have that pi carrying through in our multiplication problem, and this becomes our exact answer in feet cubed. Take that 243 over 2 times pi, and find the rounded answer in this case, 381.70 feet cubed. And that takes care of how we find the surface area or the volume of a sphere given either its radius or its diameter.